So you want to get better in Tarkov, progress faster, learn strategies, techniques, routes, gun builds, or just some general tips to improve your game and win more fights and escape more raids. But you think Escape from Tarkov is an immersive, tactical, realistic survival looter shooter. You think about the gear, the loot, getting that item, and extracting. You care about your progress and about your stats. Here's the truth on how to be a better player in Tarkov. Stop thinking about realism, immersion, atmosphere, etc. Look at it like any arcade shooter and you will win more fights and progress faster. Tarkov is just an arcade shooter game. It's just like Counter-Strike, Valorant, or COD. Don't believe me? Then let's go over some successful ways to play the game, and then you can make your own conclusions. In a CQC fight, if this was an immersive and realistic tactical shooter, the one that holds an angle would win the most fights, and the one that pushes in or out of cover would lose. What happens in Tarkov? If you hold an angle, you die most of the time. Sometimes you die even before seeing your opponent get into view. This is because of desync. See, the maximum latency without taking server calculations into account is 300 milliseconds. Since players are limited to 150 maximum ping to the server they're playing on. I would like to believe the servers in EFT have an operational latency under 50 ms, but I can't. So let's consider this number. This means typically we can see averages around 200 ms to 250 ms in desync. My reaction time without discarding my system's latency is 198 milliseconds that you can see here. You can go ahead and do the test yourself, get your own time, but the average person has a reaction time, including system latency, of 284 ms, seen here extracted from the website humanbenchmark.com with a data pool of over 81 million tests. This means the one pushing or stepping out of cover has an advantage of 200 ms where you don't see him and he sees you. And if he already knows your approximate location, you die at the end of these 200 ms without ever seeing him. Or if he's about average, he just made it into view, but you didn't have time to react. Conclusion? If you're fighting someone that exploits the desync and you are not doing it yourself, you lose. And most, if not all, the high-level players do this. They look at this game as just another arcade shooter and search for every single advantage possible, including exploiting the desync. This is true in every PvP game, and Tarkov is a PvP game, so the more competitive players do this every raid. The search is always on for that advantage to guarantee victory in a fight, and desync abuse is just the most basic one, arguably one that should not exist, but here I am giving you advice on what works, not what I wish for. Desync abuse works, and thus, 1 point to Tarkov being an arcade shooter, not a realistic, tactical, or immersive one. Now, let's look at peaks. The rule is always peek on the right of the cover you have in front of you. Why? Simple. In EFT, your gun is always on your right side, meaning when you peek, you expose only about 15% of your body to your enemy. If you peek on the left, it's the opposite. You expose 80 to 85% of your body. In a realistic tactical shooter, you would be able to switch hands, like they show us in their lore videos, therefore having the same exposure on both sides. Since you can't, it isn't one. Plus, if you combine this with the desync abuse, you're golden. Even if you don't know exactly where your enemy is inside a room or hallway, you only expose very little of yourself while you push. On the left, it's much riskier because you're more exposed. Conclusion: Tarkov only wants you to peek on the right side of anything, so 2 points for Tarkov being an arcade shooter. In those same CQC fights, you see your friend or your favorite streamer doing the Australian peek, or in other words, jumping across a door or hallway like a kangaroo and free-looking to the side to spot the enemies. Sometimes they might do it 3, 4, 5 times and it all just looks ridiculous. Here he is, carrying 50 kilos already in gear and loot, and doing this shit to spot the guys he's going to swing on and kill without them even seeing him. This isn't some realistic SWAT game, I get it, this is Tarkov. And right now, in Tarkov, you do this to basically know exactly where the enemy is inside a room or hallway, desync the dude and pop him without him even firing off a shot. It is not a competition on who looks more realistic, it is a competition on who can kill and extract. Even if these mechanics look absolutely stupid, they exist in the game and give you a ridiculous advantage, enough to stop calling it a fight and more like aim training. If you don't use these mechanics in your favor by choice, you lose. Go into an offline raid and practice them so you use them in every fight you can. Get that advantage of knowing where your enemy is and win. 3 points. In your face, you Hufflepuff bitches. Now let's look at gear fear. First with armor and ammo. Since there is a skill system in Tarkov, you might be thinking about saving some of that high tier stuff to use later on when your skills would allow you to maximize that gear. In a way, it would be like your PMC would be constantly learning, and when he is skilled enough, he can handle greater challenges and so bring the gear that would suit those challenges better. But you are not an operator, and actually using that better gear gives you a great advantage over those that don't. Someone thinking like yourself would have to capitalize on a face shot or leg meta player that has higher tier protection, when he could just basically shoot you wherever and win. Same goes for ammunition. If you have a bunch of 545 BT, just bring it, drop that BS crap. Look at the pen table here. Bringing the higher pen ammo with you means you will be able to shred through higher level armor, increasing your chances of success. Leaving your best stuff to gather dust in your stash and taking out only cheaper stuff is actually hindering you. Conclusion: caring about your character's skills, progression, and capability to handle or use that better gear, immersing yourself in your PMC, and considering there is a correlation between skills and gear usage equals a self-inflicted disadvantage. This is not a role-playing game, it is an arcade shooter. 4 points. Then you have loot gear fear manifested as a result of picking up something you want or need for your progression. Let's say you find that last USB flash drive or the LUTX to turn in. It's been 50 fucking raids and finally you have it. While it is wise to avoid fights and go for the extract immediately, most players turn to a more cautious or fearful approach to fights that come to them. Investing yourself in the ownership of that item and have that affect the way you play is counterproductive. Because if it keeps you from playing aggressively, from using that desync, and instead you find yourself holding a corner, afraid to push out so you don't lose that item or that found in raid status of that item, it results in a loss against the other player doing the right things. Allowing that gear fear to dictate how you play as if you are immersed and taking the possession of the item as important or a victory mid-raid will put you at a disadvantage if the fight comes to you. It only matters in the successful extraction screen. Until then, it is not yours. It is not even there. Ignore the relevance of the loot you have. Play as if you have nothing to lose and you will win more often. Again, arcade style. 5 points. Lastly, I want to address scavs. People say, oh, take your scav out to get some stuff and make money and so on. It's a free kit, you don't lose anything but time if you die, and you can get out with some loot. While this is true, and I am in no way denying it is, or that you can have some fun scavving around, it is counterproductive. At the end of the day, this is all about your PMC's progression. It is extremely important to get quests done, get XP, and those can only be achieved in your PMC. This means scavs are just for fun, and if you spend a lot of time on them, you're actually hindering your progression. To the top players, they're just a waste of time because all you can achieve and progress in the game at the moment is on your PMC. Even scav karma can be mostly gained by car extracts. At the most, if you're down on cash, do a quick scav in factory, 30 seconds to extract and have a kit to sell or use on your PMC. Conclusion: scavs are pointless in every sense of the game as it is right now. Therefore, no one should be using them. Wanting to be a scav, taking that free kit, hanging out with other scavs, enjoying that part of the game is preventing you from progressing in your PMC. The only thing that matters to the game right now. And so, having this integral part of the game that gives raids more life with player scavs be so useless, it's another point to the arcade argument. Do I really need to continue counting at this point? Look, I could include other tips, but for the purpose of this video, I think the point is made. As long as you keep imagining Tarkov as a realistic, tactical, immersive game, you lose. Play as if it's Counter-Strike or COD. As if all that matters is the XP at the end of the raid. Dead or alive, use the desync to your favor, right side in the Australian peaks, lose that gear fear and force yourself to play with your PMC and you'll find yourself winning more. Look at how the best out there play. Push your limits, ignore that cautious feeling, and just do what it takes to win. It seems ridiculous, but the less invested you are in the game, the more you will win. Like in any other arcade game. If you have other tips or an opinion on this subject, leave it in the comments below. Just please be respectful. Leave a like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.